And here we go.
We're back.
We are back.
48 hours?
Something like that,
After what it felt like going felt like 48 days without doing one. Welcome back. Hope you're having an awesome day. That's right. Last year wasn't awesome. We'll probably touch on that today.
Yeah, we might.
It is July 9th, the year 2021. Welcome aboard. This is the Crushing Iron Podcast, and we are episode 493.
There you go.
493. It took me like 5 minutes to get it right. I had to ask. I thought I had a senior moment right there.
Yeah,
I was like, what is it? What time is it?
It did sound like this 500 minus 7 sounds good.
What time are we eating at 500? Yeah, it makes it sound like we've done a lot more than we really have. But we appreciate you tuning in. Hope you're having an awesome week. If you're racing this weekend, good luck to you. Have fun, rip it, execute, give your best effort, and then leave the rest. If it's your first time tuning in, welcome. We appreciate you giving us your time. We know you have a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general, so we appreciate you giving us a shot. And if you're a returning listener, we love you. We love our loyal fan base because we know what sometimes we're not the easiest guys to put up with. We don't generally have 10 go-to topics for everything. We don't do guests, but we think sometimes that's kind of what you guys like, so we're going to keep doing it. We cover it all. We cover triathlon, we cover life, we cover everything in between. We'll do race recaps, we'll do race previews. Oftentimes we'll hop into our closed group, which is on Facebook. You can search Crushing Iron Group if you want to be a part of that. Answer one simple question.
Good group.
Yeah, it's a solid group. Don't just answer, just like, hey, what do I love about it? Triathlon talk. That doesn't count. Sorry.
It'll work, but
it'll work. But just tossing something. I love Mike. I love the way he sounds. I love when he says, "Yeah, man." I love when you guys don't talk about anything. Whatever you want to say, drop in there. But there's a lot of awesome people in there. Sometimes we'll use those amazing people to drive the conversation of the podcast, but they're kind of the vibe of the community. And also we'll do listener questions quite frequently. At least I think like about around like once a month. For the most part, Mike and I, as coaches, athletes, best friends, just sit back, relax, have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through, what our athletes are going through. We're not experts. We're not professionals. We're just...
what are we?
Listen, I keep saying like we're wise and we're experienced, but
living, man. We keep coming back. That's what it is. We're knee deep in triathlon.
The first thought I had was we're weathered.
We're
weathered sage old men. But no, we've been around for a very, very long time. As I think the last week or two, for whatever reason, I was like digging back through like the old school archives of just how long I've had kind of a toe dipped in the water of triathlon, like even going back to like 1988. I did like one of the very first Iron Kids event in my subdivision in Wildwood. A long time. And then one of the very first sprints I ever did. It's been in the sport for a very, very, very long time, but I love it. I love the sport. But we've been around for a while. Yeah. And again, like we're still learning. We're still pushing ourselves. We are still challenging ourselves. We haven't figured it all out, which I think is important to note. We just seen it all for the most part, done it all, made all the mistakes, had some successes, worked with hundreds of athletes across the globe that have also had, the same level of success and more success, but also, have the same pitfalls that we all have, because we're all doing the same thing, this thing called life. We're all living on planet Earth, most of us, and we're doing the best we can to make it work. So if you can take anything from our podcast and spin it off into your own reality and make it your own, and if it allows you to keep a happy and healthy lifestyle in the endurance sports world, then we'll consider it a success.
Yeah. I was thinking about what you're saying, like we've been around it a long time, and how, sometimes there's, you think about like real like sage type coach people, and how, an athlete might come to him and say, I know this is a bad idea. Like, what should we do? And then like unsuspectingly, the coach will say, I think that's a great idea. Or how they'll like, sort of, it's like you're just saying, we're always learning stuff, and like we may talk about things sometimes, and then sort of like over time our opinion on things change or whatever. And I always think that way, like when somebody comes to you and they'll be like, hey coach, I think I'm going to go blast it this weekend. And I know this is your philosophy now, but like blow it up. It seems so illogical at times. But sometimes it's like, I think it all boils down to, a lot of times as a coach, you have to help people accept what they think and they believe is right, and just because we've been through things or whatever, we don't know exactly what's right sometimes for everybody. But all I'm saying, I don't even know what I'm saying here. And then that's like typical for me.
It's not, yes, if you're
But
your
like,
first time
it kind
tuning
of gets
in,
me
this
in
is
a mood,
typical.
you know?
No, I get what you're saying, and that's I think the beauty, but also the nuance of coaching is that it's every single person is different, and they're all very, very, very different, even by 3 or 4 different parts of the season. Like they have different things happening in life. They become different people throughout the year, and that's just who we are. That's how we're wired. That's how we change. It's how we adapt. That's resembles like all the things that we go through in life. So you have to let an individual be who they are going to be. You can't, because the more you force someone and restrict someone and try to hold someone back, they're going to become, like rebellious. Like you always hear talk about, well, the preacher's son who was so strict until they were 20 and 21, then they went just, like balls to the wall because they were like, it was so strict. And then that's the same thing with athletes. You have to nudge them in the right direction. You have to, hopefully in like a healthy, positive way, steer them in a direction to where they can be their most successful selves, while at the same time ensuring that they're loving what they're doing, right? Because you might love a certain way, and you might see, and listen, that's one of the great kind of like things that coaches go through in their mind when you see an athlete and you think, all right, especially for newer coaches, that I work with, and you're working with the past few years, we have coaches that are just on board and just talking to other coaches. It's like when they first get into the sport, it's hard for coaches, I think, to wrap their brain around the fact that the athlete that you're working with isn't you. They don't have the same goals. They don't have the same motivation. They don't have the same time. They don't have the same fitness ability. They don't have, the same criteria on which they measure success. And you can't hold that against them, because this is their journey, not yours, right? You haven't been tasked and hired to apply your journey and cut and paste it to theirs. That's not why they hired you. That's not why they wanted to coach. They wanted to coach to help them on their own journey. And that's just something that you have to be very flexible and I think sympathetic to, is that it's not your journey, it's theirs. And ultimately, they make it what they want to make it. They can make it great, they can make it poor, they can make it whatever it is, everywhere in between, but it's theirs. And I think that's an important distinction to make when athletes think about coaching, is that, I don't want I don't want it to be very rigid. I don't want so much structure. I don't want it to be like, you can still have those things and still kind of have like, you can still make it the way you want to make it, and I think that's just important for athletes to know. And because the journey, honestly, ultimately is theirs, it's just your job as a coach to kind of help them, move along and grow, and that was one of the things I was thinking about in terms of like what to talk about today. I got an email from an athlete yesterday, and then I had I'll share my first other kind of why I also think coaching and how the reward system in life is so warped. It was yesterday. I was, we had a rough morning here at the hub. Like we walked in and it's like 7:50. I'm walking in with an athlete on my, technically my last vacation day. Walking in the hub at 10 till 8 to do some analysis with Chris Disk when we're athletes. And we walked in and I was like, yeah, there's the pool. And, let me show you the bathroom, you can change. And all of a sudden, like the hallway was like flooded. And I was like, what's going on here? My first thought was,
not a good,
please be the shower.
Right.
It was like, I don't know why be the shower, but like, please be the shower. And then it hadn't. So I walked back around. Obviously, as soon as I walked into our endless pool room, I saw that like the thermal tarp we have that covers the pool, we're not using it, was like sunken all the way down. And my first thought was obviously like a bunch of expletives. Because I originally thought there was like, oh my God, there's like somehow overnight there was a crack in the pool, like in the liner, which would have been very, very, very bad. Luckily, it turned out to not to be the case. It still didn't help the cleanup, or the kind of the disappointment, the frustration, and the momentary freak out. We had I think the compressor valve on top of the pump, or the just
filter,
basically exploded, which our in this pool guy said he's never seen or heard of, which I think is both positive and also disconcerting. In the fact that it wasn't something directly that we did, it was just maybe a faulty part. Anyway, it definitely didn't start out as a great day, but we ended up making
because I was going to say, because when I can you get down here ASAP? I'm like,
Before
oh,
8 o'clock.
shit, what is this? It's like ASAP. It's sort of like,
which I don't think I've ever said that to you, like, because I know, because you don't really move in ASAP terms.
no, but my brain does. It's all of a sudden like, what now? Like, what happened?
What happened?
Because I'm always, you know me,
Oh,
locking
yeah.
doors. We're doing. It's like,
Dude, I know
somebody
we are those old people now that like check and double check and triple check and quadruple check. Like I could legit see Mike pull on like our front door and see it like, not open. And then before I walk in the back door, I'm like, yeah, I'll probably go check it again to make sure it's locked. But then I was like, dude, get down here ASAP. Need some help. But I'll be honest, generally speaking, I thought we handled it pretty well. I thought we were fairly cool. Got it cleaned up, made the calls we needed to make, and now we're trying to get it fixed as quickly as we can to get back to doing some analysis and hub visits. But so we had that this morning, and then it didn't even ruin the day. I didn't think. We had a great breakfast with our athlete that lasted about 2 hours, and then got back on the day, and I went home, and I was outside talking to individual at Triathlon magazine about maybe doing an article, and then right when I'm about to get off, Hayden, who I've been outside playing 9 different sports during this phone call with, was like, "Hey, I'm ready to take my training wheels off." And I was like, "What?" Because we've tried to get him to take them off 5 or 6 times. He's like, "No." I'm like, "Fine, you're gonna do it on your own time." So I don't know why or when or what made him kind of have this bravery moment or courage. But he was like, "I want to take them off." I was like, "I got to go by." And I took them off immediately, and I said, "Listen, as soon as they go off, they're not going back on. We're not going back and forth." He goes, "Okay, I don't want them back on." So I was all right, grab your helmet. So we went to the cul-de-sac because it has a small flat grass area. I was like, let's practice here first, for a couple of times just to see how it works. Went there, and he was generally into it. And I was like trying to make the effort to learn. And I was like, let's throw your bike in the back of the truck. We'll drive over to the soccer field real quick, which is less than a mile from the house, and you can practice there. So we get on, and he's like, practice. And he's like, how long am I doing it? And he actually did really, really, really well as to start off. But I was so proud of him because for whatever reason, I don't know what sparked it. And I don't even want to ask, because I don't know if he'd be able to explain it as an almost 5-year-old, where he got the bravery and the courage to I'm ready to do this. Mm-hmm. And I was like, fine, we're not waiting. I'm not gonna be like, oh, well, let's wait till next week and do it. Right now seems kind of inconvenient. I was like, let's do it. I'm dripping sweat. It's 100 degrees outside. I'm like, let's go. Let's do it right now. Let's capitalize on it. So we went and we did it. And he kept asking me how many seconds or how many, because I was trying to find ways, which I don't think rewarding people is a bad thing, but I was trying to find ways to get him to kind of stay focused on doing it longer, because he kept falling to the left. And I was like, listen, man, you make it past 5 seconds and we'll get you a snow cone. We'll go another because he loves going to Coolidge Park and getting a snow cone. So every time he got done, he was 5 seconds. He's like, did I make it? I was like, no, you didn't make it. It's just keep working at it. Anyway, it got done, and I was like, yeah, you can get a snow cone. But I was like, do you know why I'm proud of you? He was like, because I made it 5 seconds. And I said, no. I said, I was proud of you because you tried. And I was proud of you because you put effort in, and you chose to be brave about doing something you hadn't done before, even though you knew you were going to fall over. Even as a parent, it's once you stand behind them and you let them bike, and you're like, all right, when's a good time to let them go? Because if you let them go, they are gonna fall every single time, until they learn how to not fall. And then even when they do fall, they become a triathlete, they're going to fall still, even if they're trainers. So it's no matter what, they're going to fall. So you got to let them go. And I did that a few times knowing he was going to fall. But I felt like it was important because even as coaches and in people, we always put kind of numbers attaches to what's successful or what we should be proud of. And even thought in that very minor moment that he really can't grasp the seconds, I was like, I wanted to erase from his mind the reason that I was proud of him wasn't because he made it 5 seconds. The reason I was proud of him was because he tried, right? And he put the effort in, even though he knew he wasn't going to be good at it. And that was something I tried to make sure that he knew before we even got there, and he failed over and over and over again. And I was like, listen, dude, I'm really proud of you for being brave and trying this because you tried. And I think that's, an important thing to note in terms of athletes, where we always measure, because there's something assigned, there's a value assigned to everything that we do now, right? Mm-hmm. There is a, how many hours do you work? How much money do you make? What year is the car you drive? What is your power number? What's your best 5K pace? What's your PR in a 70.3? What's your average heart rate on this? How many hours did you train this week? There's a metric and a quote unquote a value, numeric value attached to almost everything that we do. But that's also where I think the term in the just the word value has become warped, in terms of just because something you see or it is reciprocated by a numeric value doesn't mean it equates to your value as a person or your values as an individual, or that, and a lot of times it's just not that valuable. And that the emotional response that we get that is invaluable, that creates self-worth and self-value within ourselves, those are the things that we should hold on to, because numbers are gone for forever. Like that's one of these things that I've had to like talk to a lot of athletes about, and even myself, when we talk about, because I have athletes that are like just killing themselves at work and then have really bad boundaries. And I'm like, listen, I'm like not the one to talk to you, but I'm trying to work on, the boundaries myself. But eventually you're going to quit this job. And after you're done, the job is going to give nothing back to you. It's going to take in all your time. What are you going to have to show for all this time that you put in, or all this time that you've missed? What do you value most? Is it time? Is it money? You have to take care of yourself. And like I even thought about like, you, when you went out to the gravel loop over there at the park and you didn't have your GPS watch, and you're like, I want to go back and I want to know what the number was and know what the pace and the exact distance was. But ultimately all you needed to know was that you enjoyed it and you felt like you got a benefit from it, and it made you feel good. Right. And it didn't have a number assigned to it, because I know that numbers just continue to create a negative self-talk and a negative headspace for so many athletes, because they assign a disproportionate value to themselves based on a number that they see. Again, whether it's heart rate, power, expectations before a workout. Again, it just continues to rob us of the pure joy that we have and the opportunities that we have within endurance sports to just figure out things about who we are and feel better about ourselves as individuals.
Mm-hmm. And going back to Hayden and how you're proud of him for trying versus reaching the 5 seconds or whatever. One of our favorite authors is Charles Bukowski, and his thing is don't try. And I've always liked that in two different ways. It's sort of like, don't try. But I always thought like the end of that was probably to impress other people. And I think a lot of times when numbers are involved, that becomes, sort of what this really is sort of like, hey, look at me, look what I did, and look at how fast this was, or how many, feet I climbed, or whatever it becomes. And when I think about that run I had, and I wanted to go back and figure out how much it was, just to impress, or to try to impress myself in a weird, twisted way. So it's sort of like, but it felt so good just to go run. And how many people in the past, like a lot of runners, I've asked, your first question is, hey, how far did you go? And I love it when people say, I'm not sure, because then it's sort of like they just were doing it because it was fun, and they know intrinsically inside themselves that they did something good that was going to help propel them to be even better. And that was the interesting thing about my gravel run, was like, after I did it and started thinking about it and kind of got the idea, like, I don't need to find out how far it was. I started thinking about like how great it would be just to keep running over there, and long runs, short runs, whatever they may be, and just do the same exact thing and have no idea how fast I'm running, basically, when I go into a race. It'd be kind of interesting, because I know that I'm doing good work. That's the thing. It's sort of, when you're doing good work. It's like I always talk about when I used to practice my baseball or my softball, and I'd just throw with the ball against the wall, and I had no idea how many times, but I'd work on that backhand over and over and over. And I might not see that work for a long time, but like one play out of nowhere is like, man, I couldn't have made that play if I hadn't have been doing that for hours at a time, just on my own with no, recording of anything. It was just sort of like, it just felt good, when you get in there. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. It's like you have these rides where you're just like, I know I'm doing the work, and I don't need to see it really, because it just is good work. And I think we have to understand what that feels like, because like if you're shooting for a number, sometimes that may not be the best work or whatever, but you can, I always, it's like, we talk about how your mind can drift or things can go. And I was talking about like cycling in a race, it's amazing how, like, if you can just stay at a pace and be consistent, how that may end up being a faster ride than the one where you're hammering it for a while and then you're like, man, that crushed me. And then you fall off and you get tired and you got to eat a bunch of stuff to get the energy back, and then you're going fast again, like the inconsistent ride or whatever. I think it's important to kind of feel those things in your training and learn what it feels like just to be consistently solid and move in that right direction. Because to me, that's when I felt like I started to understand long course, is on the bike, when I was like, man, you know, I'm at mile 35 or 40 on a half or something like that. And I have just been under control, going hard, but not over the top. And that feeling was locked in. And that's sort of, I think, when you understand at least the cycling portion of long course, you know,
it's you got to be steady.
And how do you work on that in training?
Yeah. And going back to like the what it feels like to do good work, I would love it if for like a month, every athlete, before they got to see like their average pace or their average power or their miles per hour, distance covered, like before they were able to upload a workout, they had to go through and check do you feel good about this workout? Do you feel good about your effort? Did it feel good to your body? Do you feel like you made good choices? Are you happy? Check, no check, you know, skip the box, whatever. Then you upload it. Because what happens is and you and I both, we read this as coaches, like runs that were like, you know, or comments in Training Peaks that are phrased, well, I really thought I was having a good run until I got done. Okay, so you spent 50 minutes feeling awesome about yourself, about what you're doing, you're moving your body, you're creating all this positive energy and doing all these positive things for yourself, not just as a triathlete, but as a person. And then you got done and you hit click and save and uploads and you see an 8:40 pace versus an 8:28 pace. And now you basically you had this like negative view of the 50 minutes that you just did because you pulled 8:28s out of your head for whatever reason is what you expected to run today. Mm-hmm. And you erase that 50-minute experience. And now all you're thinking about is, I wonder why I wasn't that fast. Like how we just continuously choose, because it's a choice, right? To rob ourselves of the pure joy of good work. And because it should be that simple. It is, or I didn't have it today, but you know what? I showed up and I did it. That's also good work. Or I skipped a workout because it felt like I was too tired. I was too stressed. That is good work. You know, it's this misconception and skewed, polluted view we have now of what's good and great and perfect is also what's best. And that's just not true. Like I was reading a study yesterday afternoon that was done with cyclists, and it basically had like really, really high life stress cyclists versus no life stress, basically a very low stress cyclist. Mm-hmm. Same protocols. The cyclists that were in a very high stress state almost saw no power improvement. The cyclists that had basically no life stress, same protocol, 16% improvement.
Wow.
Because of no life stress, right? But they were also, the way also interpreted it was the ones who were overtraining based on their life stress. But they were probably feeling like what they were doing was good work, you know? And I think that's just we have this, again, this view and perception of how things are in life, that, you know, perfection and no mistakes and, you know, no flaws, like that's what makes everything good. You know, that's how we measure progress, right? How we measure getting mm-hmm. better. And that's like, I'll use it to kind of catapult the email that I got from Stuart Rogers, an athlete that I've worked with for 4 years now. He'll say he's my favorite athlete, but he's not. His wife's my favorite. But he emailed me and he said, the email was titled, "Who have you turned me into?" And I honestly believe like this sums up what good work is. And he said, I become the kind of person who is damn proud of a red/green day because of what it represents. I planned my morning around going to an indoor pool to get my 3,400 yard swim in. When I got to the first pool, it was closed. So I went to the second pool, which was also closed. I realized I wouldn't have enough time to get the full workout into my neighborhood's pool, so I adapted. I went home and did tomorrow's workout on the treadmill. Here's where I saw my growth. Very early on in our relationship, I told you that I was mentally weak, an athlete who needed discipline. I would take any excuse to miss a workout. Then he kind of had some bullet points, and he said, 4 years ago, you couldn't have given me today's swim because I wouldn't have been able to complete it. 3 years ago, I would have given up, come home, and taken the day off after the first pool was closed. 2 years ago, I definitely would have given up and come home after the second pool was closed. And then last bullet point, but not today. Today I did the best I could with the hand I was dealt. I don't feel guilty about it. I don't regret anything. I just did my best to prepare to move on to the next day. What the hell have you turned me into? That is the perfect summary of good work, right? It was intent. It was headspace. It was perspective in that. And again, like going back to like buying things and how we try to, like we've associated colors and Training Peaks with success, right? And I, like you always say, so you love yellows, right? Mm-hmm. Because it means you tried, you got in something, right? Because what it also means is, because athletes see yellow, and I even say something like, you don't like it, then turn it green. I don't give a shit. Like if you don't like it, the fact that like, right. Like give athletes like, a swim that might take them an hour, and I don't put yardage in, and they finish it in 46 minutes, and it turns yellow. Like I'm really disappointed it's not green. I'm like, really? You're really disappointed? You did the workout. You're disappointed because of a color, right? Like this is what we don't deal with in kindergarten. Like if you want to change it to green. But what I love about yellows is because yellows usually represent, I had two doors. I had the door to try and get some in, but I also had the door to walk in and do nothing. And what you chose to do was do something. Knowing that it wasn't going to be completed, know that it wasn't going to be perfect, you still chose to do something. That to me is where you really measure success and good work. Whereas, because you have a good perspective, you have good effort, and there's great intent, and I think those should be applauded just as much as the ones that are, force-fed green because I got to keep my streak just because it's a color, even though I might be driving myself into the ground just to maintain this streak. That's also not good. You don't get kudos for that. You don't get a round of applause for beating yourself in the ground. You get rounds of applause for taking days off because you feel like you need it, or frankly, sometimes just because you want to, because you know what? That's also okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the yellow thing too, when they go over, like maybe they're feeling good on the bike and go another hour or whatever. And that's why I'm curious about looking at yellows, is because it always kind of tells a little story. I wasn't feeling it today quite, but I gave it a shot, or I was feeling great and I thought I'd add a little bit. Good for you, because it is your journey, right? So back to that cycling stress test thing about how the improvement came with people who were less stressed, right? And I think that, stuff like that's a microcosm as well. And that's why I always talk about like easing into your bike in a race or something like that, or easing into the swim, because I think if you come out hot and you're trying to hit a number, you're trying to hit like, I got to be, within the first mile, I got to be going 20 miles an hour or whatever, like, because I got to average that or whatever the case may be. I think that's a high load of stress that we don't realize on our body. And, whether it's a 175 power number and you come out and you want to be at 175 right out of the gate or in the first couple miles so you can hold that average. I just think there's a lot of, super unstressed people are chill, right? So they let things happen, and it always, usually works out. Most things usually do in one way or the other. And if you can kind of like give it patience, and I think patience is a big part of like understanding how to not be stressed in a race, is like, if you start that race, and you want to average 20 and you start in the 18 mile an hour range, and then over time you just get stronger and stronger. And that's, to me, is how stress or de-stressing reflects itself in the body. It warms up, it gets more used to the situation, it's conditioned. We talk about like stress is how weird it is, because like, why are you so tired after a long drive? Well, you're going 75 miles an hour and your body's like, you probably feel like you're super relaxed, but your body is like, and your mind is like totally on edge for the whole time, probably, because things are flying by and you're probably making thousands and thousands of decisions. And I think that's kind of the truth on the bike or, any on the swim and the run, whatever. It's just, there's so many things going on. So if you don't let your body kind of like, well, it's sort of that system check thing, or if you don't let your body kind of like figure out what the hell's going on and you just try to jam it in there right away, you're going to overheat, mentally or physically usually. Yeah.
And it comes down to like going back to like good work, listening to what feels like good work or doesn't feel like good work. Like, should I make the decision to just bail and call it a day? Should I make the decision to, like you said, keep riding? Like, I'm feeling incredible. This is like the ride that I needed, and I have another hour of my day, but I have to cut it short.
Yeah.
Because it's only an hour and a half in my Training Peaks. If I go over, I'm gonna get a yellow or an orange. Go ride for an extra hour. Who cares about a effing color? Like, there's an obsession about it that is like, it's honestly incredibly unhealthy about the colors in Training Peaks of what that represents, because that doesn't represent good work. Oftentimes it represents failed observations within oneself to understand that, skipping a workout was probably the best thing for them that day. I mean, but on the flip side, I have athletes that like I'll put their weekend and they literally move every single workout. And their coach, they're like, "Coach, why don't you say anything?" I'm like, "I don't care."
I know, right?
Like, if that's what fits in, because in my perception of and how I view it or how I see it is that if you're moving it for a good reason. It makes more sense. It's because you woke up and you thought you had time to bike, but like Stuart said, I went to go swim. Someone said I did tomorrow's workout and I went and ran. It's like, how am I going to get mad at that? Like, because what it did was it removed stress by you making that move, right? It is your plan. It is your journey. It is your training. And I just think it's to be flexible and to understand that and not to be so, because like you said, going out for the first mile thinking you have to hold 20 miles per hour or do things the exact day at the exact time in the exact way. Where is the enjoyment in that? Like, and when you think you have to do the exact thing, now do I say like, and I'll say it's like when you put a week in Training Peaks, what you put in there is best case scenario, right? It is Monday through Sunday. If you can do it like this, that's the perfect scenario. The next best one is whatever it takes to get them all done, right? But outside of being stupid and like, putting 3 runs on one day or, or moving things around to where it doesn't make sense. And that's when you kind of catch them like, all right, we're not doing this. But for the most part, it's just about getting it in. It's like you put 2 cooks in the kitchen and you've got the same ingredients together, all in order and how to put them in. And one person has a master chef, standing beside them. It's like, you have to do this exact way right now. No, don't put the pepper before the salt before pepper. Don't put the heat to 475. It needs to be exactly at 470.2. By the end of the meal might have tasted really good, but the experience for that cook, miserable, right? Who wants to be in that kind of emotional, mental stress versus the cook next that wasn't, on the other side of the table. It's like, all right, so you tell me I can just kind of like make the meal the way I want to, and like it feels good, and I'm not stressed. I'm having somebody leaning on my shoulder. All right, this is pretty fun. I did this. All right, whatever. I'm gonna do pepper before salt. I'm gonna put it to 475 because it feels like me. Right. It feels like something I might do. And they ended that. They look at it and like, this is what I'm like. I loved making it, and it still tastes really good. I'm happy with this. Like, and that is how. And that to me is, again, that is good work. And I just think that there's a lesson for every athlete, no matter how experienced and rigid you are, is to be flexible and to applaud yourself for being flexible, but also recognizing that there's a lot of success in what you used to see or deem as failure or not meeting things like that. That's, again, going back to Monday or whatever we did Wednesday. It's like, that's how we grow, right? Is recognizing those things, because they're not failures. They're just drops in the bucket that look different, smell different, put out a different result. Like they all go in the same bucket and they all teach us something. They're all good. It's just the measure of value and how it's become, again, I think just like polluted into a new, a number that has to be associated with being better is so false and so warped that I think, because now every athlete buys things for more numbers, for more tech, for more data, even though 95% of them don't really even know how to discern between all of it to see that it makes sense, is that's how they continue to measure success. When ultimately, like when you look back on your journey, it's going to be about, what did you learn? How did you grow? Yes, about, did you complete races? Did you get faster? All things are important, but ultimately it's also like, what are you going to leave the sport with or leave the season with? What are you going to remember the most? And what are you going to remember? Are you going to remember all the Met workouts you did? Yeah, I'm telling you, man, last year was awesome. There was this Wednesday in May. I thought I was going to go out for a 45-minute run at 9-minute pace. And guess what, dude? 45-minute run, 9-minute pace. Like it was the best day. It was the best day of the year. No, like when you don't predict, and that's like one of the things I've learned over being in sport for such a long time is I have a ultimate hope for what I want the workout to go. Like, if I have numbers I want to hit, I want to get close. Right. But if I don't, I also don't like become like incredibly disheveled as like a self, like, oh, this represents something really, very bad about me. You just didn't make it, right? What do you get up tomorrow and do? You approach it the exact same way. Like it doesn't mean something negative about you as a person. That's just who you are today. But we measure and criticize, and we're so harsh on ourselves every single day for reasons that are honestly beyond me.
Mm-hmm. Over the years, I felt like I've trained really well for races, and I've trained, not that great. We talked about, I think last podcast, about nobody has the perfect lead up, for example. Mm-hmm. And, you can feel really good about training and going into a race. And then just like, I'm thinking about maybe my fulls, and all of them have been pretty good, So, but I'm saying, like, I thought some days I was just really going to absolutely crush the race. I just felt like the training going in was but they kind of ended up being sort of like similar, or maybe not as anywhere near as great as I thought. And then other times I'm like, I'm undertrained in this, and it goes good, So I guess what I'm pointing out here is that, I don't know exactly why that happens, but it can happen. And I think it has something to do with that we talk about. I mean, I think stress level is just a huge deal, because if you come in, you train perfectly, that you have to execute perfectly. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of pressure, man. So there's this weird thing about, I love last time we were talking about it was just, when you're in the ballpark, it's kind of fun to see, like what's going to happen. You get in there and you never know what's going to happen, but you're there, and it could go a lot of different ways. So just roll with it,
You know why people love watching March Madness so much?
Yeah, it's so unpredictable.
And because they have only investment in one team out of 60 something. Mm-hmm. And how much more fun it is for a lot of people to watch the tournament when their team isn't involved.
Yeah.
Because they enjoy the stories. They enjoy the game for what it is. The blowouts, the comebacks, the buzzer beaters, like you enjoy the crazy drama that is sports, right? Instead of weighing so much on some team you've always been loyal to, who's the athletes that play on it literally have no idea who you are on the face of earth. They'll never even talk to you. They don't even know who you are, yet you put so much stock in what they do, and it ruins your day when they lose. That's no way to enjoy it. Yet when your team loses, you're like, I can like just kind of enjoy watching. You're going to root against teams you don't want. It seems like for bowl games, right? In college football, it's like you watch good games and you're like, I'm going to watch it because it's a good game. My team's not playing it, but I think it's going to be a good game. You enjoy it for the experience and just at the core of what it can be with sports. And I think that's so true about training in triathlon, is like when you just enjoy it for what it is, and it's like raw, naked, just like bare bones, like, competing without all the things that you have, like, because the more things you buy, the more things you compare. And if you just love it to love it, then those are experiences you can't, they're irreplaceable, right? Like you were saying, like, putting a guy like me in water, this crystal, I wouldn't even wear a watch. I would just swim to swim. Because I love it, mm-hmm. Because in those experiences, you don't, like, you're not looking at your watch to tell you if you're having a good time. You're having a good time, right? And you're probably going to do what? you're probably going to do it for more. Right? You're probably going to do it longer because it doesn't have a reward at the end that's comes out, that's something digital. You just love it to love it. And again, that's when, if you can find your way to that kind of approach with training and swimming and cycling and running, that you just love it to love it, then you're going to get the best result because you're going to do it more. You're going to get more value out of it. You're not going to be so stressed, right? Of like, and I love what you said about being in the ballpark with races. It's like, same with me. Some of the best lead ups I've ever had to races, I go in and that didn't go as well as I thought. And then I've also been in the ballpark and kind of been like, man, I'm just kind of glad to be at the game. Like I don't have like I'm glad I got a ticket. This is going to be fun. And then I end up, having like a really, really good race.
Wasn't this 2016 Wisconsin? Is that the year? What year was it?
For me?
Yeah. That was...
Yeah.
When you and I did the race together.
Yeah, I think it was 16.
You kind of weren't sure about what was going to happen. You had a really good race. I was in the same boat. I had a good race. I had a better race. That's probably my best race there, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Like I'd had no idea how it was going to go. I had a ton of life stress going on. Hayden was 7 weeks born. He had spent time in the NICU. I was like, I don't know how this is going to, like every ride I did was on a trainer, like every ride, dumb trainer, by the way, and sponsored by Sons of Anarchy. And
then you go out and pound yourself on those roads.
And then, yeah, exactly. That's something you can't replace. But I was like top 50 out of the water overall, including the pros that year. I biked really well, even though I had a flat. I ran, the gate a little bit hot, but I was, I think, 3 or 4 minutes off my Ironman PR, which is in Arizona, super flat, much easier course. But I was so proud of that day because of how I raced, and I don't think I should have done that well, right? Based on like what I had done and the experience I had, and but it was just one of those, again, like you can't. But that's why it's so fun. Is like to go into a race and not predict. But I think there is like, you sit on the front row you find your way in the front row behind the dugout. You expect to have the greatest experience ever, and it could end up being the most boring game you've ever witnessed in your entire life. Or you could show up with your kid and, scalp some tickets for $40 a pop. The most famous player gets up to bat, hits a foul ball in the back seats, upper deck. Who catches it? You do, right? Yeah. That's like, who's going to have the better experience? You are the guy who caught the foul ball. That was just kind of like, that's the beauty of it is you can't predict it all. But it all goes back to the experience and who you do it with and how you train and your approach. There's just so generally so much good to come out of what we do that I just don't want athletes to continue to rob themselves of the joy of what we do by comparison and metrics and what is good and how do we measure improvement. It's like, oh, but I didn't meet, I predicted a 0.76 intensity factor on today's bike workout and I only met 0.74. I just didn't have it today. Did you not? Like, because if you remove both of those and you felt good about it and you put the effort in and maybe you're tired, maybe you had a long day or you're doing it outside when it's freaking hot and the dew point's 76 and you shouldn't be outside anyway. Was it really a bad day? Was it really a bad day? Or again, but going back to what you said, 30 minutes ago, athletes are beginning to not be able to recognize what good work feels like because it's becoming robotic. For most people to see a number and have to hit a specific number, not in a range, or to go out and think, I've got to hit a 9-minute pace. I'm going to hit it no matter what the terrain is, no matter what, everything is. It's not about effort. It's about exactness and precision. And the margin for error in success and happiness is becoming so small with so many athletes because of all the gadgets and the stuff that, again, a large majority of athletes don't even know how to use usefully to make their training better and more enjoyable. It's just becoming purchasing the thief of joy, which is expectations and numbers that are being applied irresponsibly and unfairly to yourself on not any given day, on almost every single day. Mm-hmm. It's just not having it. Like I literally walk out the door every day when I go run and think, I'm just going to run and I'm going to do the effort that I'm supposed to do. And if I feel good, I feel good. If I don't, I don't. But I don't measure it. I'm never disappointed when I'm done. I might look at my watch and be like, all right, wasn't feeling that great today. You know what? you're right. I wasn't feeling that great today. Like, it was more of an affirmation type thing. Or I'm like, yeah, I was feeling pretty good today. Good work. And then it immediately, my thought about it is gone. Like, it totally dissipates. And like, I don't even sit back at my laptop and like, let me look at the data and look at well, I've ran this route 19 times here in 2020. Let me go back and isolate every single one and see what I know. I just move on to the next one. What do I got the rest of the day? Next day, what do I do? You could, if you asked me what my pace is for the last 3 weeks, couldn't tell you at all, any of them, period. I just go out and do it because right now I just love it. I love what I'm doing. And to me, that's enough. And I think that'll, in the next couple of months when I end up racing again, I feel like I'm going to be in a better spot mentally and emotionally because I'm just loving what I'm doing. And when you love what you're doing, then you're usually going to be able to perform a little bit better than if you don't.
Mm. Yeah. And going back to that Wisconsin race where we did that one together, I remember distinctly, I always have a, outside ballpark goal of trying to get on the podium at these Ironman races. I haven't really been that close. But I always think going in, I'm like, yeah. So, but I know I can always recognize at certain points during the race that dream has gone, and in that particular race, I ran, the first loop and I got done with the first loop and I was like, okay, I know I'm off the podium and I know if I just kill myself, I can maybe make up 8 minutes on this next 13 miles or maybe 13 minutes, whatever. Just like super, super unpleasant. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I just didn't feel like doing it. And I really enjoyed, that was probably the Ironman I enjoyed the most. I mean, you're out there doing 140 miles of work and people are just cheering you on and laughing. I really had a good time out on the course that second loop. And it didn't really, I kind of kept my pace. I thought maybe I could push it a little bit more, and for whatever reason, I know that's what it takes sometimes to get what you need, but I knew I had what I needed. And I wasn't, for me, a lot of times my benchmark's sort of getting under 12 hours or whatever. And I was easily under that. And I just was like, to push it so hard to get a few more minutes, it was this thing. So like, I always talk about like, if you want that thing, you got to hurt. But like that day, I just really was happy out there. It was kind of fun, to be out there on that second loop and, not wake up the next day, like with my legs in casts and things like that. So
the experience
was
felt
phenomenal.
Good. Yeah. And
it was good enough,
I will say, like, again, I contend that Ironman, to forever be forgotten, Ironman Louisville finish line was the best in North America. But I will say the best street to run on is State Street. And I will legit never forget running first or second loop straight. It's like the Tour de France, right? Mm-hmm. It's like 10 people deep cheering and yelling. And I remember I was coming up on the very end and I was like, I didn't think I was even going to be close to like my PR. And I ended up being like, again, like 4 or 5 minutes behind. I knew within like a mile left, I was like, I'm not making it. Mm-hmm. And at that point, Hayden was like, I don't know, 100 feet before the finish line, and I kept thinking to myself, "Yeah, but you're close." I don't even think I know how close it was, but I knew it was pretty close. And I was like, "Do I stop, and lose seconds?" Like I didn't know where I was. I knew it wasn't the top 5. I think it ended up being like 12th or 13th in my age group. But I was like, "Do you blow by because you got to get those seconds, man? You got to get those seconds. It could be 12th or 13th, or it's going to lose a position or two." And I remember thinking like, who gives a shit? Like, what am I going to regret or be happiest most doing? Am I going to regret not stopping and blowing by, even though there's not going to have any recollection of me doing it, at 7 weeks old.
Yeah.
But to me, it meant something to stop and give him a kiss on the head and then finish. Because not doing it, what would I have even like cared about the couple seconds? In the moment, you're like, I got to get there faster. I got to do it. But in the moment, it was what feels good. And that's why I think the balance between and how they kind of blend and bleed together of training and of life is like what feels good sometimes might look different than what you always assumed it would look, right? And the experience and being able to do it. And you have these visions, oh, my best race is this one. A lot of people's best races aren't their slowest times. They label best as like their best experience, their best effort. You know, they overcame the day, you know, like, you know, again, going back to Ironman Louisville, like the last couple ones are really hard. Most athletes have been like, that's the one I'm the most proud of. Not because none of them are PRs, right? And I find it so fascinating that most athletes, going back to what you said again about knowing you weren't going to do this, how it freed your spirit to enjoy and soak in the moment more because your expectation or desire for something was gone. It wasn't achievable anymore. Then you became somebody who just soaked in everything about it versus having like this tunnel vision. That's the same, going back to like these hard races. I think Coeur d'Alene was the same way for a lot of athletes recently, was that I knew my time goals were gone. And now it was just about enjoying what I could enjoy and doing this. I'm like, isn't that how it's supposed to be? Like, we have this tunnel vision of success that we never feel, right? We never feel successful. We just feel like we met an expectation. We didn't exceed it. We just met it. And if we don't meet it, it's a disaster. And I just can't believe how I'm failing, or I can't believe this is happening to me, or I'm so devastated. You know, then tell me the last time you enjoyed what you were doing. And I honestly think a lot of athletes can't say that. I don't remember the last time I was really just loving it and enjoying it. I keep finding myself, you know, kicking myself in the butt for, you know, missing this time back in the earlier year, taking part of 2020 off or doing this. I'm like, who cares? Like, what are you doing now? And do you love it? And if you don't love it, then like Ann Malin, who, you know, both known for like 7 or 8 years, who was an athlete worked with on and off for about that time, emailed over the week. And she was like, hey, just want to check in, signed up for my first race. Hasn't raced in like, I think 3 years. And she was like, just want you to know, like, I'm just loving it right now. She was like, I'm just loving training. I'm just loving doing it. I'm not even looking at my watch because I don't want to get into that mindset of comparing myself. Because once you start to compare yourself for a day or two, then it becomes just a pattern. You're just going to compare. Because you have more things to compare. She was like, I don't want to look because I don't want it to steal and take away how much fun I'm having right now. And I'm like, perfect. Don't need to know anything else. Like, you know, like just keep having fun and keep that headspace. Because if you can do that, the sky's the limit. Because you're going to keep doing it. You're going to keep loving it. And that's when things happen that are very, very, very good versus, again, being like paralyzed by numbers and metrics. And again, just that's why it's so great to just not have an expectation, but to go in with, you know, kind of, you know, the underdog role or the you know, the team that's got a bunch of freshmen on it who haven't been there before, and they're like, what they always say, like, they just don't know to be nervous. Like, but those are the ones you're scared of because they're not nervous, right? They're not necessarily naive to the moment, but they're like, I'm just having fun being here. Like we're a 12th seed in the tournament. We're in the Final Four. It's already a success that we got here,
right. And
right now we're playing with house money. Like that's the team or the person you don't want to come up against because they're playing with house money. They're playing free. They're already like, you know, in Wimbledon, same way I've been watching tennis. It's like you got a guy who's like a 28 seed who makes it to the quarters, the semis, you know, who's going to make more money in one tournament and get higher placing he's ever gotten in his life. Like he has literally nothing to lose because he's already been winning for the last week. And like those are the people you don't want to play because they're not going to be tense. They're not going to be nervous. It's not that they don't know better. It's because they're just loving it. And those are people you don't want to mess with.
Yeah. Playing with house money. I like that. You could always play, you know, once you get to Ironman, you're kind of playing with house money. You know, in that way, if you can mentally do that, you know, and as you're talking about enjoying an experience, and I just went right back to my Louisville, actually a couple of years ago in the cold one, when I finished. I think I have the most accumulated time on that red carpet.
You did, dude.
Talk about soaking it in,
you were
man.
running for president, going down the red carpet. You were like kissing foreheads.
You were
kissing babies, shaking
30
hands.
30 or so people
like
racing.
2020.
We had 30 or so people racing and 30 maybe other athletes just hanging around supporting and spectating. And I just kept seeing people I knew. I literally walked on that thing probably for 2 minutes. And it was amazing. You think it was at least. But it was a blast because I just kind of walked down and kept seeing people. And, you know, you talk about, you know, having great people around and how, you know, talk about house money, man. You got the best finish line in Ironman and around, and there's thousands of people out there and you're on a stage, man. it's like, I was like, I gotta, why not soak this in? And I probably got into about, 20 people's finisher picks in the background.
Oh, dude, a minimum. I think I remember texting you during the finish. And I was like, all right, I guess we're going to podcast on Tuesday. Because I was like, that's how long you were taking to roll down. But you just got to enjoy the moments. Like, we work hard. It's like, and I think that's the thing is most athletes forget how hard you work, right? Mm-hmm. To get to a point to not enjoy it or to be so, then why do you do it? Right? If you're going to beat yourself up so hard, no matter what, and it's going to be about just barely meeting an expectation and not enjoying moments and not enjoying experiences and not having fun, then why are you doing it? Oh, well, I'm going to qualify for Kona next year. I need to be very precise and very specific. And I have this, okay, you know what? You can still have fun doing it. You can still smile. You can still, take your kids with you on a bike ride when they do it. You can still do all those things. It's not, again, going back to, not every lead up is perfect. Remember that, because if all you're going for is perfect, then understand that there's also probably a very, very high likelihood that there's going to be 20, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4 people ahead of you who didn't perfect lead up that are going to beat you, right? Like the pressure we put on ourselves to be perfect or to act perfect or to have the perfect session is daunting, and it will swallow you whole over time.
That's good.
Yeah, you want to end there, I can tell. You want to go back to Louisville, walk down the road, park it. We're up on a deadline. My
chrono is like
we're up
pushing that hour.
Deadline. I wonder if today was a good podcast. And I feel pretty good about it. Well, we got one bad review. Whatever, F it. I feel like it was a good one,
Yeah. Yeah, T-Rex, if you're out there, come on in with another good review.
T-Rex, who's that?
Some guy on YouTube that lives in his mom's basement, I think.
Oh, he doesn't like you?
He doesn't like us.
Oh, that's all right.
But he listens to every podcast, and he's got always criticism.
Oh, I don't even know what our YouTube channel looks like.
I know. I just get the notice every once in a while. I'm like, here he is again.
Here he is, T-Rex. Hey, T-Rex, man, we love you.
We love you.
Your arms might be short, but we still love you. If you need help reaching on top of the refrigerator for the cookie, hit us up. No, in all seriousness, we love you all. We appreciate you. You can swing over our website to learn more about all the things that we do, coaching, camps, and community. I know we have 2 spots left for our June camp in Nashville next year. Slots are also available for our camp in Texas next March. So check those out on our website again, c26triathlon.com. If you want more info on the coaching that we do and all the coaches that we have, you can click on the coaching tab, click down, and scroll through the bios. We also have our club membership going on. If you want to just kind of get a general feel of our community and our team and how we're doing, you can always go to Instagram and it's c26_triathlon.
All right, buddy.
That's all right, man.
That's it. And I guess we're going back to work.
Yeah, let's get to it.
All right, see you.